For 20 years, I paid the mortgage on a house that was never mine. I did not know that when I signed my first check. I did not know it when I worked late, when I packed lunches, when I cut coupons and said no to small things I wanted so that we could build our future. I only found out the truth the day a woman at the bank looked up from her screen and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your name is not on this property at all." If you are watching this right now, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. USA, Canada, the UK, Australia, or somewhere else. And answer this to yourself as you listen. Who handles the paperwork in your house? You, your partner, or we'll just let him deal with it? My name is Linda. I am 57 years old. I have been divorced for 3 years. I own a small condo now. My name is the only one on the title. The day I signed those papers, my hand shook, not from fear, but from relief. But before I got there, I had to walk through something I never thought would happen to me. I want to tell you about that, so maybe you can check your own story before it is too late. When I met Tom, I was 26. I worked as a receptionist in a busy medical office. He came in once with a sprained wrist from playing basketball. He was handsome in that easy, boyish way. Dark hair that never sat quite right. Laugh lines even in his 20s. He flirted with me while he filled out the forms. "I hate paperwork," he said, making a face at the clipboard. "Do we really have to do this?" I laughed. "If you want the doctor to see you, yes," I said. He grinned at me like I was the only person in that waiting room. At the time, it felt like a light turned on and aimed right at me. He worked in sales back then. He liked to talk about goals. "By 30, I'll own a house," he said on our third date, waving his fork as if it were a magic wand. "I don't care if it's big or small, I just want it to be ours." That word stuck to me. Ours. I came from a family that rented and moved a lot. The idea of an ours that had walls and a mortgage sounded like a fairy tale. Tom loved to say, "I'll handle it." If there was a bill, he'd say, "I'll handle it." If there was a letter from the bank, "I'll handle it." Taxes, insurance, car repairs, all handled. At first, it felt like a gift. I had grown up watching my mother struggle with forms she didn't understand. She would sit at the kitchen table chewing her pen, whispering, "Why is this so complicated?" While my father said, "I'm no good with this stuff," and turned up the TV. When Tom said, "You don't have to worry about that, babe. I like this stuff," I believed him. I felt safe. We got married when I was 28. Small church wedding. My parents cried, his parents danced, and everyone said we looked perfect together. We rented a little apartment the first 2 years, made it cozy with thrift store furniture and hand-me-down dishes. Every time we passed a for sale sign, Tom would squeeze my hand. "Soon," he'd say. "Soon, that will be us." I would picture a small house with a porch, maybe a tree for Christmas lights. I did not picture a lawyer's office and a woman saying, "You have no legal claim." After our second wedding anniversary, Tom came home with a thick folder. He slapped it down on the kitchen table with a big grin. "Guess what?" he said. "I found it. Our house." Inside were photos printed from a real estate website. A 2-story place with a little yard and a tired-looking fence, but to me it looked like a castle. "We can make this work," he said. "The payment will be tight, but with your pay and my commissions, we can do it." I remember that night so clearly. The way my heart pounded. The way we stayed up until midnight talking about where we'd put the couch and what color paint we'd use in the bedroom. The next week we met with a mortgage officer at the bank. I wore my best blouse and brought a folder with my pay stubs like they told me. Tom did most of the talking. He liked to joke around, make everyone laugh. "You'll never see a late payment from us," he said. "She's the responsible one," he added, pointing at me. The woman smiled, asked us questions, typed things into her computer. She printed out stacks of papers and slid them across the desk. "These are the disclosures. You'll need to sign here and here," she said, tapping lines with her pen. "And you," she nodded at me, "will need your signature on the application and on the affidavit." I signed where she pointed. My name was there, next to his, on the forms that said we were applying together. I did not read every word. The language was dense. Words like obligor and tenancy that might as well have been in another language. I was used to that from my mother's kitchen table. I told myself, these people do this every day. They know what they're doing. After what felt like hours, she said, "Congratulations. Once this is recorded and funded, you'll be homeowners." Tom hooped, hugged me, kissed my forehead. I remember thinking, we did it. We're safe now. We moved in a month later. The first night, we slept on a mattress on the floor because we hadn't moved the furniture yet. We lay there in the semi-dark, boxes around us, and Tom said, "This is ours, Lynn. Ours." I believed him with every cell in my body, that if you have ever sat in a banker's office signing things you didn't fully understand because someone you loved said, "I'll handle it." Right, I signed too in the comments. You are not alone. The first few years in the house were what people call the good years. We painted the walls. We planted a small rosebush by the front steps. We had friends over for barbecues on the cracked patio. Money was tight, but we managed. I picked up extra hours at the office. Tom's sales job had ups and downs, but on good months, he'd come home with a big grin and a bottle of cheap champagne. "Mortgage is nothing," he'd say, waving the receipt. "We're killing it." Our system developed almost without thinking. I handled most of the day-to-day bills, groceries, utilities, my car payment, the little things. Tom handled the big stuff, the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, the investments. He'd sit at the kitchen table with his laptop, statements spread out, looking very busy and important. If I asked about something, he'd kiss my head and say, "Don't worry, numbers are my thing. You hate this stuff, remember?" And he wasn't wrong. I did hate it. Spreadsheets made my eyes cross. I loved the feeling of a clean house, a full fridge, the kids' backpacks lined up by the door. I let him have the rest. Yes, by then we had kids. 2. A son and a daughter. When our first baby was born, we painted one of the bedrooms pale yellow and hung little clouds on the wall. I remember standing in the doorway with my swollen feet, looking at the crib and thinking, "This is our child in our house, we are doing it." Tom took a picture of me and the bump in that doorway. He framed it and put it in the hallway. It stayed there for years. Kids make everything bigger. The love, the mess, the bills. I cut my work hours down when they were small. Daycare was expensive, and staying home part-time made more sense on paper. It also made me feel like I was doing what a good mom does. I still worked a few days a week at the office. The rest of the time, I worked at home. We do not call it work when a wife does it. We call it helping out. But it is work. I folded tiny clothes, cooked endless meals, wiped tears and noses, organized birthday parties, sat in tiny chairs at parent-teacher conferences. Tom would say, "You're amazing, Linda. You keep this whole ship afloat." Then he'd pat my backside on his way to the door and say, "Love you, see you tonight. Don't worry about the mortgage, I paid it." Every month, a chunk of money left my account into our joint checking to help with the mortgage. It wasn't automatic at first. I would transfer it on payday. 100 at the beginning, then 2, then 3 as my salary went up when I returned to full-time work later. Tom's commissions were unpredictable. My paycheck was the steady one. We even joked about it. "You're the rock, I'm the waves," he'd say. But together we make a good tide. I never once, in those first 15 years, asked to see the mortgage statement. It came in the mail with his name at the top. Tom Hayes, it would say, and then the bank's name. I assumed that was normal. I told myself, he applied first, that's all. We're married. What's his is mine. That's the point. If my name wasn't on the top of one piece of paper, who cared? I saw the house every day. I vacuumed it. I scrubbed toilets in it. I painted walls and planted things in the yard. I traced the growth of my children on the doorway with a pencil. That was my proof. Sometimes little red flags waved, and I ignored them. Like the time we refinanced, and he said, "You don't need to come to the appointment, I can sign for both of us." I let him. Or the time my mother asked, "Is your name on the deed, honey?" while we were doing dishes at her place, and I said, "Of course," a little too fast, then changed the subject. Or the time a form came from the county tax office with his name only, and he said, "They only list one owner for mailing, it doesn't matter." If you are listening and one of your red flags just waved in your mind, please don't shove it back in the drawer like I did. Ask the question now. Later hurts more. The first real crack in the story came not from the bank, but from a friend. We were at a birthday party for one of my kids' classmates. The grown-ups were in the kitchen making small talk. One woman mentioned she and her husband had just separated. "Thank God my name is on everything," she said, half laughing, half crying. "At least he can't just kick me out of the house." Someone asked, "How did you know your name was on it?" She answered, "Because I made sure." I told him I wasn't moving into something that wasn't legally mine too. The room buzzed. People asked more questions. Some women nodded. Some looked uncomfortable. I stood there with a paper plate in my hand, my heart suddenly beating too fast. I realized I did not know for sure whether my name was on anything. I assumed. I trusted. I believed. But I did not know. That night, after the kids were in bed and Tom was watching a game, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I typed, "How to check whose name is on house title," into the search bar. It took me to our county's property records website. I punched in our address with trembling fingers. The screen loaded slowly, as if it knew it was about to show me something I wouldn't like. When the record appeared, it was simple. The owner line said, Hayes Thomas. Just that. One name. Not mine. No, and Linda Hayes. Just him. I stared at it for a long time. My first reaction was not even anger. It was confusion. Maybe this is just how they list it, I told myself. Maybe the system only shows the first name. Maybe there's a second page. I clicked and clicked. No second page. Just one name. I called Tom into the kitchen. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. Look at this. He came, annoyed about being pulled away from the TV. What's up? He asked. I turned the laptop toward him. The county website only shows your name on the house, I said. Why is that? He looked at it, shrugged. Ah, he said. Weird. Must be some old record from before we updated the mortgage. We updated the mortgage? I asked. Yeah, when we refinanced, he said. They probably just didn't change the title. It's just paperwork. Don't obsess over it. He kissed my forehead and went back to the living room. His answer soothed the noise in my head for a while. He looked so calm. So sure. I told myself. He would not lie to me about something this big. We have kids. A life. This is just a detail. I closed the laptop and pushed the doubt down, deep into the place where all the other doubts lay. Years went by. The kids grew. We paid every month. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes when the car broke or someone got sick, I would think, at least the house is there. That's our safety. Even if everything else goes wrong, we have this roof. It became like a second spine to me, holding us up. Then Tom lost his job. He was 49. The company downsized. He came home with a cardboard box of office junk and a look on his face I had never seen before. A mix of anger and panic. They're idiots, he said. I gave them 20 years. I hugged him. I said all the right things. We'll get through this. You're smart. You'll find something new. Inside, a cold hand closed around my heart. I knew my paycheck would have to stretch even further now. I also knew our savings were not as great as he always made them sound. The first few months, he looked for work. He went to interviews. He wore his old suits and came back with forced smiles. It went well, he'd say. They liked me. Nothing concrete happened. Slowly, the job search energy faded. He started sleeping later, watching more TV. The pile of beer cans in the recycling grew. When I asked how the search was going, he'd snap. Do you want me to make something up? It's hard out there. I backed off. I picked up extra shifts. I cut corners. I canceled my small yoga class because the fee felt like a luxury. One afternoon, a year into this new life, I came home to find a thick letter on the kitchen table. The return address was our bank. The envelope had been opened. Tom was sitting at the table, staring at the letter with a pale face. What is it? I asked, my stomach flipping. He didn't answer right away. Then he pushed the paper toward me with a shaking hand. They're threatening foreclosure, he said. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. My vision blurred at the edges for a second. How? I asked. I've been sending you money every month. I thought, he cut me off. It wasn't enough, he said. With my unemployment and your pay, we were still short. I thought I could catch up when I got a new job. Then 1 month turned into 2. I was going to tell you. I just kept hoping it would get better. I read the letter. Words like default and foreclosure proceedings swam in front of my eyes. The number they said we owed looked huge to me. To them, it was just numbers. To me, it was my life. We need to talk to them, I said. See if we can refinance again or set up a plan. I already tried, he said. They want to see updated documents. Income verification. Assets. They want both owners present. There was that word again. Owners. Okay, I said, forcing myself to breathe. Then we'll go together. A week later, we sat in a cold office across from a woman with kind eyes and a businesslike manner. She had our file open on her computer. Mrs. Hayes, she said, before we proceed, I need to explain something. According to our records, you are not listed as a borrower on this mortgage or as an owner on the title. Your husband is the sole obligor and title holder. That sentence felt like someone had taken that cold foreclosure letter and slapped me with it. What? I said too loud. That can't be right. I signed things. I've been paying. This is my house too. She looked uncomfortable. I understand how you feel, she said. But legally, the documents show only Mr. Hayes as borrower and owner. You are not on the note or the deed. Tom shifted in his chair. There must be some mistake, he said smoothly. When we first applied, she was included. They must have. The woman shook her head gently. I can show you the scanned documents, she said. She turned the monitor slightly. There it was. The original note. His signature. His printed name. No line for me. No signature from me. None of the papers I had signed back then were in sight. Maybe they were application forms. Maybe they had never been attached to the loan. I had no way of knowing now. If the property goes into foreclosure, she continued, your credit, Mr. Hayes, will be impacted. Mrs. Hayes, your credit will not be directly affected by this loan. But, she hesitated, if you have been living there and contributing, I know this must be very distressing. The room felt like it had shrunk. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. So you're telling me, I said slowly, that if we lose this house, it was never mine in the first place. Not on paper. Legally, that is correct, she said. Emotionally, I know that's not how it feels. But legally, yes. If you are hearing this and your stomach just dropped, please, after this video, check your own name. Check the deed. Check the loan. Do not wait for a bank officer to tell you who you are in your own story. I did not scream in that office. I wanted to. I wanted to stand up and knock her computer off the desk and shout, you're wrong, I scrubbed those floors, I painted those walls, I raised babies in that house. I am in every corner of it. But none of that would change the black letters on the screen. I sat there, hands clenched in my lap, and said nothing. Tom reached for my hand. I pulled it away. On the drive home from the bank, the air between us felt thick. We didn't turn on the radio. We didn't talk. I stared out the window at houses rolling by. Neat lawns. Different colors of doors. And I thought, all these houses have names on paper. Who else thinks they own something they don't? When we pulled into our driveway, Tom put the car in park but didn't get out. Can we not make a big deal out of this? He said finally. We have enough going on without you turning some technicality into World War III. A technicality. That's what he called 20 years of my work and trust. I took a breath. I need to ask you something, I said. And I want a real answer. Not a joke. Not it's just paperwork. A real answer. He ran a hand through his hair. Fine, he said. Ask. Have you ever planned, I said slowly, to use the fact that my name isn't on the house against me? He looked offended. What? No, he said. Why would you even think that? Because you didn't tell me, I replied. Because you let me believe all this time that we owned this together. Because the bank lady had to be the one to show me who I am on paper. He laughed, but it was the wrong kind of laugh. Sharp. Mocking. Come on, Linda, he said. Don't be dramatic. You know without me you'd be nothing financially. You hate this stuff. You don't know how to deal with loans and banks and taxes. If it weren't for me handling things, you'd probably be renting some tiny apartment or living with your mother. The words landed like stones. I had heard small versions of that line over the years. You'd be lost without me. You don't know how lucky you are I handle this. This was the first time he said it so clearly. Without me you'd be nothing. I opened the car door. We'll see, I said quietly and got out. Inside the house, the kids were at the kitchen table doing homework. They looked up when we walked in. Hey, Mom, my daughter said. What's for dinner? For a moment, I just stood there. I wanted to say, dinner is foreclosure and betrayal. Instead, I said, pasta. Wash your hands. I cooked. I set the table. I loaded the dishwasher. My body moved on autopilot while my mind replayed the bank screen and Tom's voice. What scared me most wasn't that he had said, you'd be nothing without me. It was that some part of me still believed it. That night, after everyone was asleep, I took the laptop back to the kitchen table. I pulled up the county website again. I searched our address. There it was. Hayes, Thomas. Now that I knew what I was looking at, it felt like a brick wall. I clicked around more this time. There was a tab for document images. I clicked it. Scan PDFs loaded. Deeds. Liens. Mortgage releases. All with his name. None with mine. Then I opened another tab and searched, how to add spouse to house title. A flood of articles appeared. Some said it was easy. Some said it was not. Some mentioned things I had never seen before. Quitclaim deeds, warranty deeds, community property. I realized how little I knew about the legal shape of my own life. The next day, while Tom was at a networking lunch he said might lead to a job, it never did. I dug through the old file boxes in the basement. There was a dusty box labeled house stuff in his handwriting. Inside were closing documents, insurance papers, old property tax notices. I flipped through them with growing frustration. His name. His signature. His signature again. Once, I saw my handwriting on a disclosure form about lead paint. So I had signed something. Just not anything that gave me rights. At the bottom of the box was something else. A crisp, newer folder. It had a small sticky note on it with a date from 2 years ago. My heart picked up. I opened it. Inside was a copy of a will. Not the one we had drawn up when the kids were little, the one where everything went to the surviving spouse. This was newer. In it, if he died, the house and his retirement accounts went first to my wife, Linda, provided she is still living with me at my primary residence. That part stung a little. It made my rights conditional. If I wasn't under his roof, I wasn't his wife on paper. If we both died, the kids got everything. Fine. If I died first? His sister, Nora, was listed as secondary beneficiary for the house. Not my family. Not a charity. His sister, who lived 3 states away and visited once every 5 years. I read that line 3 times. In the event that my spouse, Linda Hayes, predeceases me, I leave my primary residence to my sister, Nora, with the understanding that she may, at her discretion, allow our children to live there temporarily. At her discretion. His sister, who thought our kids were loud and sticky. A few pages later, there was a handwritten note attached. I recognized Tom's writing. Linda, it said. We should talk about this when things calm down. For now, this keeps things simple. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Love, T. I had never seen this folder before. We had never talked about it. Things had never calmed down enough for him to think I deserved to know where I disappeared to in his plans. I put the folder back in the box, then took it back out and brought it upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at it. Part of me wanted to confront him right then. Part of me wanted to hide it somewhere safe. That part won. I put the will in a plain manila envelope and slid it into the back of my own file cabinet where I kept my pay stubs and tax returns. If a war was coming, I would need evidence. Not of cheating or crime. Evidence of intent. The next few weeks were a strange mix of ordinary and terrifying. We still had to deal with the foreclosure notice. We managed to scrape together enough, with help from my sister and some savings I didn't tell Tom about, to stop the immediate process. The bank put us on a trial payment plan. 3 months of higher payments to prove we could afford the modified terms. It felt like trying to hold back a flood with paper towels. Tom grew more irritable. I grew quieter. He resented having to report every job application and interview to the bank. I resented that my money and my pride were being used to prop up a house I now knew could legally swallow me whole and spit me out with nothing. One evening, after a particularly tense day of bills and phone calls, we argued in the kitchen. It started small. I asked him if he had followed up on a job lead. He snapped. Why is it always on me? You act like I'm some loser on the couch. I act like someone who has been paying half of everything without knowing she owns nothing, I responded. Maybe I'm tired of pretending it's all under control when it isn't. He slammed the drawer shut. You don't get it, he said. You don't know what it's like to be a man and fail. To feel like you can't provide. I do know what it's like to feel like you can't provide. I shot back. I've been doing double duty for a year. And before that, for 2 decades, I provided without my name on anything. That's not my fault, he said. The bank guy said it would be easier. You said you hated paperwork. You made me handle everything. Now you want to blame me because you were happy to let me. I was happy to trust you, I said. There's a difference. He laughed again, that bitter laugh. Face it, Linda, he said. Without me, you'd have nothing. You'd be nothing. You're only standing here because I built this life. I got the loan. I made the deals. You just clocked in and made dinner. The words hit me like a slap. Just clocked in. Just made dinner. Just raised children. Just transferred money into a mortgage for 20 years. I felt a heat rise in my chest. For the first time in a long time, I didn't swallow it. Don't you ever say I am nothing, I said quietly. My voice shook, but not from fear. Look around this house, Tom. Every room you see, I've cleaned. Every bill you've ever paid, I put my money into. Every piece of furniture you sit on, I picked up or paid for. You think because your name is on a piece of paper, that makes you the only one who built this. He rolled his eyes. Here we go, he said. The martyr speech. No, I said. Here we go, the waking up speech. I may have been asleep at the paperwork wheel, but I'm awake now. And I am not going to let you talk to me like I'm a guest in my own life. That argument did not end with hugs and forgiveness. It ended with him storming out to go for a drive, and me standing in the kitchen shaking, my heart pounding, my hands gripping the edge of the counter so tight my knuckles were white. The kids heard some of it. My daughter peeked around the corner. Mom, she said softly. Are you okay? I forced myself to unclench. I'm fine, I lied. Go finish your homework. She didn't believe me. Kids never do. Over the next few days, I did something I had never done in my marriage. I made secret appointments. I called a lawyer. Her office was small and smelled like coffee. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes and a soft voice. She listened while I poured out 20 years of history. The good parts. The cracks. The bank meeting. The will I found. The "you'd be nothing without me" line. When I finished, she sat back and tapped her pen on her legal pad. Legally, she said, it matters that your name is not on the house. But it also matters that you contributed financially for 2 decades and that this was your marital home. Courts look at that. They look at intent. They look at patterns. You are not as powerless as he'd like you to believe. I felt something loosen in my chest. So if we divorced, I asked, the word tasting strange, I wouldn't just walk away with a suitcase? No, she said. Not unless you sign it away, which you should not do. You'd likely be entitled to a share of the equity. Maybe half, maybe less, depending on what the judge sees. The retirement accounts, too. We'd need statements, documentation, evidence. Evidence. I thought of the will in my file cabinet, the email receipts from years of transfers, the pay stubs, the property records. I can get those, I said. Quietly. She nodded. You also need to protect yourself going forward, she said. Open a separate bank account in your name only. Move part of your paycheck there. If he is saying things like, you'd be nothing without me, believe that he is at least thinking about how to keep control if you push back. Do you think he's planning to leave? I asked. She shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. People like him often think they can have everything their way forever. But I've seen many cases where the husband suddenly files for divorce after getting the house in just his name, hoping the wife will be too shocked or scared to fight. I prefer my clients not be shocked. I walked out of that office feeling like I had just learned a new language. Terms like marital property and equitable distribution rolled around in my head. I wasn't ready to file for divorce yet. The word still scared me. But now I knew that if it came to that, nothing was not what I would be left with. That evening, Tom asked, "Where were you?" When I came home later than usual. "Errand," I said simply. For once, I did not give a full report. He frowned. "You always tell me everything," he said. "This is new." "A lot of things are new," I replied. "If you are still listening, here is something I want you to take from this part of my story. When someone repeatedly tells you, you would be nothing without me, what they are really saying is, I need you to believe you are nothing so I can feel like everything. You don't have to accept that script. In the weeks that followed, I opened a new bank account. I had my paycheck split so that a portion went there and the rest went to the joint account. I started gathering documents. Quietly, respectfully, like someone cleaning out a closet no one else looked at. I scanned old statements. I printed copies of the will. I took photos of the property record screen. I did not know exactly when I would need them. I just knew that not knowing had put me here. Knowing, even if it hurt, felt better. One afternoon, I came home to find Tom on the phone in the living room, talking in a low voice. He didn't see me in the hallway. "Yeah," he was saying. "I know. Divorce is messy. But if I play this right, she won't fight it. She doesn't know half of what's on the table. I can give her the car, maybe some savings, make it sound fair. She hates conflict." My heart pounded against my ribs. "We'll talk more later," he said into the phone. "I've got to go. She's back." He hung up, turned around, and nearly jumped when he saw me. "How long have you been there?" he asked. "Long enough," I said. My voice was very calm now. The kind of calm I only get when the storm has moved inside. His eyes narrowed. "Were you spying on me?" he snapped. "No," I said. "I live here." I walked into my own house. I heard my own name. I paused. And the word divorce. He opened his mouth, closed it, then shrugged. "Maybe it's time we admit this isn't working," he said, trying to sound casual. "We're always fighting. The money, stress. The kids are almost grown. We could split things, make it clean. You'd be fine. I'd make sure of that." I almost laughed. "You'd make sure of that?" I repeated. "Like you made sure my name was on the house? Like you made sure to tell me your new will leaves everything to your sister if I die first?" His face whitened. "You went through my files," he said. "That's private." "Our house is private too," I said. "Until the bank puts a sign on the lawn. Don't talk to me about privacy while you plan divorcing me on the phone with someone else." He glared at me. "You're overreacting," he said. "I was just exploring options." "Me too," I replied. I spoke with a lawyer. His jaw tightened. Why would you do that? He demanded. Because you told me I'd be nothing without you, I said. And I decided to find out if that was true. That night, after the kids went to their rooms, we sat at the kitchen table like strangers on opposite sides of a long bridge that had just cracked in the middle. So what? He said, staring at the wood between us. You're going to take me to court? Bleed me dry? Ruin what's left? No, I said. I am not interested in ruining you. I am interested in protecting myself. There is a difference. He snorted. You and your lawyer talk, he said. Let me guess, she told you you're the victim. That you've been taken advantage of for 20 years. She told me I have rights I didn't know about, I said. She told me that my work and my money count, even if my name isn't on your precious title. She told me I wouldn't walk away with nothing unless I chose to. And you believe her? He asked. Some woman who doesn't know us? I believe what the law says, I replied. And I believe what I saw in your plans. You were ready to file, hoping I'd be too shocked to fight. You thought you'd hand me keys to a car and a pat on the head, and I'd say thank you for letting me keep my clothes. His silence was answer enough. In the days that followed, I moved like someone packing for a storm. On the surface, life went on. I went to work. I made dinner. I asked the kids about their day. Underneath, I met with the lawyer again. We went over numbers. She asked for more documents. The bank statements showed years of my salary flowing into our accounts. The mortgage records showed payments made from those accounts. The retirement account statements showed substantial balances that had my husband's name on them, but were built during our marriage. All of this, she said, tapping the papers, is part of the picture. Judges don't just look at names. They look at contributions. They look at fairness. The fact that he tried to hide the house issue and the will may not legally change everything, but it will affect how a judge sees his credibility. We also talked about the kids. They're almost out of the house, I said. One is in college. The other is a junior in high school. I don't want to rip their world apart more than it already will be. You can't avoid some pain, she said gently. But you can avoid staying in a situation that makes you smaller every day. She was right. I could feel myself shrinking around him, hunching my shoulders, lowering my voice. Even my clothes felt like they had less color. The night I told the kids, I thought my heart would jump out of my chest. I sat them down in the living room. Tom refused to be there. You tell them, he said. This is your show. So I did. I told them in simple words that their father and I were separating, that we loved them, that this was not their fault, that some problems between adults are not ones kids can fix. My daughter cried. My son went quiet. There were questions. Where will we live? Will we have to sell the house? Did Dad do something wrong? I answered what I could without weaponizing the truth. We might have to sell, I said. Or one of us might keep it. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. You will always have a place with me. They accepted that because they had no choice. Tom filed first, as if to hold on to some sense of control. His petition painted a picture of irreconcilable differences. No mention of the bank. No mention of the title. No mention of his new will. That came later in our filings. My lawyer attached copies of everything we had found. She also attached a detailed statement from me, listing my contributions over the years. It felt strange to put things I had done automatically into bullet points. Primary caregiver to children for X years. Financial contribution to household expenses, averaging Y per month. Home maintenance, cleaning, cooking, scheduling. On paper, my invisible work suddenly had weight. It was both satisfying and sad to see. During one of the settlement discussions, his lawyer said, Our position is that Mr. Hayes brought this house into the marriage and should retain it. I almost choked. He brought it into the marriage? I said. We bought it 2 years after we married. I signed the application. I paid for every can of paint. How exactly did he bring it in? Tom glared at me across the table. His lawyer cleared his throat. What we mean is the loan and title are solely in his name, he said. My lawyer leaned forward. And my client's payments and labor for 20 years mean nothing? She asked. If this goes in front of a judge, we will argue strongly that she is entitled to a fair share of the equity at minimum. It did not go in front of a judge right away. There were offers and counteroffers. Tom wanted to buy me out, with an amount that was insultingly low. You can take this and get a nice little place, he said, as if he were doing me a favor. You didn't like this house that much anyway. I refused. I will not sign away my rights for a quick check, I said. If we have to sell and split, we sell and split. I will not leave you with everything I built with you. He tried every tactic. Guilt. You're tearing this family apart. Fear. Lawyers will eat up everything, and we'll both end up broke. Charm. We were good once, Lynn. We can be civil. You don't need to drag this out. Underneath all of it was that same belief, that without him, I would be lost. That I would take the first lifeline he threw me, even if it was frayed. What he did not understand was that the day in the bank, and the night he said, "You'd be nothing without me," had already killed the version of me that would grab that rope. I was scared, yes, but I was also angry. And anger, used well, can be a ladder instead of a cage. Eventually we stood in front of a judge. Family courtroom. Fluorescent lights. Wooden benches. The air smelled like old paper and too much perfume. I sat next to my lawyer at a narrow table. Tom sat with his at another. The judge was a woman in her 50s with tired eyes. She had seen hundreds of people like us, I'm sure. She listened to both sides. She asked questions. She looked at our documents. When she got to the part about the title, she frowned. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "why is your wife not on the deed to the marital residence?" He shifted. "It was how the bank did it," he said. "At the time, it made sense. Her credit wasn't great. We never thought." "Did you discuss this with her?" the judge interrupted. "Did she understand that she was not being added later?" He hesitated. "We meant to change it," he said finally. "We just never got around to it." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Hayes, did you believe you were an owner of this home?" she asked. "Yes," I said. My voice wobbled, but I kept speaking. "I moved in. I paid into the mortgage every month. I raised our children there. My husband always referred to it as our house. I first discovered my name was not on the title when we were facing foreclosure." She nodded slowly. "And you continued to contribute financially and with labor even after that discovery?" "At first, yes," I said, because I didn't know my options. But I also sought legal advice when I realized how vulnerable I was. After reviewing everything, the judge gave her decision. We were both tense, holding our breaths. Given the length of the marriage, the contributions of both parties, and the fact that the residence served as a marital home funded in significant part by Mrs. Hayes's income and efforts, she said, "the court finds that it is equitable for the equity in the home to be divided. The property shall be sold, and after paying off the remaining mortgage and costs, the net proceeds shall be split equally between the parties." Tom's head snapped toward me. "Equally?" he hissed under his breath. "It's my name on it." The judge heard him. "Yes," she said firmly. "Equally. Legal title is important, but it is not the only factor. Marriage is more than a name on a deed. Mrs. Hayes was not a tenant. She was a partner. This court will not treat her as if she were a guest lucky to be allowed to stay." Those words made my eyes blur. Partner. Not tenant. Not guest. Partner. A word I had not heard in a long time. The judge also divided the retirement accounts, the savings, the debts. It was not perfect. It never is. I did not walk out a rich woman. But I did not walk out with nothing. I walked out with enough. Enough to pay off my own small car. Enough to put a down payment on a modest condo. Enough to breathe without wondering where I would sleep next month. On the day the house sold, I walked through it one last time. The walls were bare. The rooms echoed. The marks on the doorway where we had tracked the kids' heights were still there. I ran my fingers over them. "This is where you were 7, I whispered to no one. "This is where you were 12. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the spot where the laptop had sat the night I checked the property records. I looked at the corner of the living room where we had put the Christmas tree every year. I looked at the place in the hallway where we had hung the photo of me pregnant. That house had held so much of our lives. But it did not own me. And I did not own it. Not really. Not the way I had thought. When I left with my boxes, Tom was in the driveway, talking to the real estate agent. He avoided my eyes. As I loaded the last box into my car, he finally spoke. "I hope you're happy," he said. "You got what you wanted. Half. I can't even buy something decent now." I closed the trunk and turned to him. "You told me I'd be nothing without you," I said. "Look around, Tom. We're both starting over. The difference is, I know now I can stand on my own. You still think your worth is in what you sign." He shook his head. "You'll regret this," he said. "You had a good life." "I had a life built on a lie," I replied. "Now I have a smaller one built on the truth. I'll take that. If you are still here listening to this, I want you to hear this next part clearly. Walking away was not easy. Starting over at 50-something with half a house and a heart full of cracks is not a fairy tale. I moved into a 2-bedroom condo in an older building. The walls were thinner. The freeway was a little too close. The appliances were older than my kids. But when I signed the deed, the lawyer slid it toward me and said, "Sign here, Ms. Hayes." And my name was the only one on that line. My hand shook. Not with fear. With something like joy. I took the pen and wrote Linda Hayes in my careful schoolteacher script. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly where I stood in my own home. My kids came to visit. At first, they were angry. "Why did you have to make it so messy?" my son asked. "Dad says you took everything." I sat them down and told them a simpler version of the truth. That their father and I had built a life where his name was on things and my work was invisible. That I had decided I deserved better. That the court had agreed. I did not badmouth their father. He had his own story. But I did not let his version be the only one they heard. In the months that followed, I learned how to do things I had let him handle for years. I called the utility companies and put the accounts in my name. I set up my own online banking. I met with a financial advisor, a woman this time, who explained retirement options in plain language without making me feel stupid. I fixed a leaky faucet by watching a video. I changed a tire once when I got a flat. None of it was glamorous. All of it chipped away at the idea that without him I would be nothing. One day, about a year after the divorce, my phone rang. The caller ID said Tom. My first instinct was to ignore it. Then I picked up. "Hello," I said. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Hey," he said. "I heard you bought a place." "I did," I said. "Congratulations," he replied stiffly. There was a pause. I might have made some mistakes," he added. "With the house. With how I handled things." I waited. "I thought," he continued, "maybe we could. I don't know. Get coffee. Talk." I pictured him. Alone in a rental, perhaps. Papers in his own little pile. Maybe he had found out that handling everything alone doesn't feel so powerful when no one trusts you anymore. "I don't hate you, Tom," I said. "But I don't think coffee would be helpful." "You really think you're better off without me?" he said, almost mocking, echoing his own old line. "I don't think I am better," I said. "I know I am not nothing. Those are different things." He sighed. "Suit yourself," he said. "Always did." Then he hung up. After that call, I sat on my modest couch in my modest living room and looked around. A small bookshelf with books I chose. A wall with pictures I hung. A kitchen where every pot and pan belonged to me. A plant in the corner that was somehow still alive. It was not the life I had dreamed of at 28. It was not the big house with the perfect lawn and the impression of safety. It was smaller, quieter, and more honest. If you are in a relationship where someone says, "You'd be nothing without me," I can't tell you to pack a bag and leave tomorrow. Only you know your finances, your safety, your children, your options. But I can tell you this. Those words are a lie designed to keep you from looking at the truth. The truth is that if you have been holding up part of the life you share, with your paycheck, with your cooking, with your caretaking, with your scheduling, you are already something. With or without their approval. Titles and deeds and signatures matter in court. But in the court of your own mind, you get to decide if you are a partner or a passenger. I paid our mortgage for 20 years. Then I found out the house was not in my name. My husband told me I'd be nothing without him. He was wrong. I was late, but I was not lost. I signed my own name on my own place. And every time I put my key in that lock, I remind myself, I am not nothing. I am here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy stories like this, kindly turn on the notification bell, like and subscribe to this channel as we bring your way more interesting stories on a daily basis.